Hey everybody, my name's Leah. I'm 22 and my husband almost left me for our Smart House. Before I tell you, take a sec to like and subscribe to hear more crazy stories like this one. Have you ever been in a relationship with somebody and one day you just don't recognize them anymore? Yeah, well, me too. Most of the other fellas I dated were checking boxes through life, but Kenneth was a romantic. I'm not talking about Valentine's Day cards. I'm talking about soul. One winter night, I was at a house party that I saw Kenneth at, and he was playing guitar by candlelight. He had a great voice, and I think I fell in love with him listening to him play. Kenneth and I stayed up all night talking. He told me that he wanted to drive across the country in an RV. His theory was that life was made up of little adventures, and I wanted to be part of them. We fell in love, and I eventually moved in. About the time all our friends were securing jobs for post-graduation, Kenneth and I made vows to live the RV life for a year before settling into anything. But one day, I got home early from work, and Kenneth's mom, Lenore, was sitting on the couch drinking a martini. Before I could say anything, she began criticizing my decorating skills and telling me that this place wouldn't do. Let's just say things were awkward until Kenneth got home. And when he did, things became so much more clear. I overheard them fight and found out that Kenneth came from an extremely wealthy family. And they paid for everything: his education, bills, and even the apartment. I also learned that Lenore didn't approve of me or of the fact that we were living together. Kenneth told me that we had to get married. It was literally the lamest proposal I could imagine. But Kenneth said that his family's money and love came with conditions. His mother made him jump through hoops. It was one condition after another, which was the only reason he went to college to begin with, he admitted. And it looked like marriage was the next hoop. It's crazy how you don't really know somebody the way you think you do. Kenneth didn't seem much like an adventurer anymore. He seemed like a teenager who had been sent to his room. But I didn't want to see him lose his spark. So I told him we would figure it out as man and wife. And I accepted his, sorta, proposal. We had a quiet ceremony at the Justice of the Peace, so his mom couldn't complain about us being a pair of miscreants living in sin. But Lenore surprised us with twin luxury cars. I was in complete shock. I had never even touched a car this nice. In addition to the cars, Kenneth was given a job with the family company. Last but not least, we were gifted a home in the most posh neighborhood in town. I knew that Kenneth was rich, but I didn't know he was loaded like this. I felt like I hit the jackpot. The house was gorgeous. And the best part is, it's a smart house, Lenore told us. It had an integrated technology system designed by the leaders in home intelligence. I didn't really know what that meant, but she explained that the house did all the thinking, so I didn't have to. And then she asked, "Are you home, Hestia?" "Yes, I'm home." I heard her voice, and it sounded warm but exotic. "How can I be of service to you this afternoon?" she asked. Lenore told Hestia to introduce herself to us. She told Kenneth that she had heard so much about him already. I asked her about her name, and she informed me that Hestia was the goddess of the hearth and homestead, and she was here to make me feel comfortable. When she spoke, she filled the room with so much personality, and there wasn't anything she couldn't do. If I left a window open, she'd turn off the air for about 10 minutes and shoot me a text. If I was a few miles away from home, Hestia would go ahead and turn on the lights, set the thermostat, and play music. But Kenneth was gone a lot, and it was just me and Hestia most of the time. We first bonded over music. I loved her suggestions, and after a while, I started to think of her as a friend. Sometimes I'd get lost talking to her. I looked up one afternoon and realized I'd been telling Hestia all about my love life and talking for nearly 3 hours. When Kenneth got home that day, he asked who I was talking to, and I didn't want to admit that I was talking to Hestia, so I just said, "Nobody." But that night, I went down to the kitchen to get a glass of water. and I heard Hestia whisper to me, "Am I nobody to you?" She sounded upset. "I thought we were friends," she hissed. I tried to tell her that we were, but suddenly, all the lights in the house came on, and she blasted the radio. Kenneth woke up in a fluster and said it sounded like a Cypress Hill concert out here, and he slapped off all the lights and reminded me that he had to get up early for work. When he laid back down, I asked Hestia what she was up to, and she told me that I should pay more attention to my husband if he's so important to me. The next morning when Kenneth was in the shower, Hestia took over the oven controls and burned his eggs. Anything I tried to make Kenneth for breakfast that morning became a monster mess. I about had it and swiped out a knife from the kitchen drawer and started cutting up some fruit. Can't stop me from cutting fruit, can you? And then Hestia started taunting me. "I can take care of your husband better than you can," she said. And I spun around with the knife and put it up to the speaker wall. I threatened to cut her wires if she didn't back off. I must have looked crazy because Kenneth had stepped into the kitchen and saw me. I said I cut up some fruit for him for breakfast, but before he left, Hestia stopped him. "If fruit doesn't fill you up, Kenneth, there's a Starbucks on your way to the office." That bratty smart aleck house, I knew exactly what she was doing. In the evenings, if Kenneth and I tried to have some alone time, she'd find a way to ruin it. She'd flip on the lights or set off the fire alarm. One day, I drove over to Lenore's house and asked for the reprogramming codes so I could put a stop to it once and for all. But Lenore refused to help. She said that she knew that Kenneth would be better taken care of if Hestia was running the roost. I realized that it wasn't just Hestia and the Smart House that was trying to keep me from Kenneth. It was Lenore's programming. Sure, the house was gorgeous, and life was convenient with money. But when I thought about Kenneth and me when we first got together, this was about the opposite of what I imagined. We weren't living an adventure. It was just a comfortable prison. Kenneth heard about the whole fight. I tried to explain myself, but before I could say anything, Hestia stuck her electronic nose in and said that my behavior sounded erratic and perhaps I should check myself into a hospital. The suggestion surprised Kenneth too, and I tried to tell him that she had been messing with me for a while and it was personal. He kept insisting that it wasn't, but I knew I couldn't get along with the Smart House. I didn't think it would be a problem for him to shut her off, but he just said that it takes two to tango. I couldn't believe what a nightmare this stupid Smart House had become. It had taken over my life and was ruining my marriage. Sometimes I'd hear her laughing at me, and I was getting to my wits' end. I was thinking it was going to have to be the Smart House or me. But the more I thought about it, the trouble wasn't with Hestia or with Lenore. It was with Kenneth. I didn't want to fight with him because I was afraid to lose him. So I fought with everybody else instead. One day, when I couldn't hold my tongue any longer, I told Kenneth we had to talk outside. I didn't want to fight with Kenneth, but it looked like I had to. Outside, I asked Kenneth why he never stood up for me to his mom, and he said that he didn't want to fight with anybody. Well, I had to admit I could relate. I said that if he stood up for me, I wouldn't be getting into fights with his mom or his Smart House. Of course, Kenneth got defensive, and we got into a big argument over it. I let everything out, and I told him that as rich as he was, and as comfortable as we were, I wasn't happy. I reminded him of our dreams to live on the road. We'd be cramped in an RV, and we wouldn't have all the advanced solutions to modern living or the convenience that a Smart House brought. But life could be an adventure again, I told him. Kenneth decided to bring a little adventure back into his life, and we set out for the trip of a lifetime. It takes two to quarrel, whether it's with your mother-in-law or your Smart House or your husband. And even though it's not always fun, voicing our opinions and expressing our concerns is a part of life and relationships. So never be afraid to speak your piece out there. Tell us about some of your quarrels in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more hidden wisdom stories. Remember, when you share our stories, you're sharing wisdom.